So we're here in the Hampton Roads community. Why are we seeing a surge among heroin use in this community?
Okay. In Hampton Roads, we've seen an increase in death due to heroin use. And I believe it's because they're not just using heroin, it's a combination of heroin and fentanyl. Fentanyl is also an opioid, and with fentanyl, I'm distracted by the.
Sorry,
That's
stand
okay.
by. We're going to close the door.
Yeah. You could just start from your question.
Okay.
Yeah. You want me to repeat the question?
Let's start from the question.
Okay. So we're here in the Hampton Roads community. Why is there a surge among the use of heroin users in the Hampton Roads community?
Well, see,
Why do we see a surge?
it's not really, and I'll tell you, it's not really a surge in heroin use, more so than they're seeing a higher death rate.
So explain that to me.
So what that means is that the users now, there's kind of a mix of heroin and fentanyl. Fentanyl is an opiate, and what fentanyl is, it's similar to morphine. Heroin, it's a synthetic compound that's used usually post-operatively or used, and when someone is getting a surgery, they'll put it intravenously or maybe even in an epidural. It's very potent. It's 100 times more potent than morphine. And so users now are actually injecting a combination of heroin and fentanyl. And what typically happens when something, and it's not really new, but it's kind of new to this area, when something new comes around, until they realize how potent it is, you'll have a higher incidence of overdoses, and then people will realize that, hey, this is very potent and they need to use less of the drug, and then you'll see it go back down a little bit.
My thinking is this is a controlled substance, fentanyl. How are users on the streets getting access to that kind of controlled substance?
It's coming illegally. People are, stealing it. You also have those
From hospitals?
individuals, they could be stealing it from hospitals, but you have individuals that can synthesize drugs nowadays. So, you can get it in multiple ways.
In the homes, they can synthesize it.
Well, I would say that you probably more so have someone with labs out there that may be synthesizing fentanyl.
Okay. In terms of government intervention, I guess, the U.S. is spending more than $50 billion annually on controlling these kinds of drug activity or drug war, as they say. Does any of that money go to pharmaceutical companies?
For a well, repeat that question again now.
So the U.S. government is spending about $50 billion annually in what they call this drug war. And my question is any of that money going to pharmaceutical companies to help prevent drug overdoses or drug crimes and creating medicine and prescriptions to deal with overdoses?
Okay, I would say more that the money may be going to, and I don't know for sure, but if any of the money is funneling back, it's probably going through the way of research to the National Institutes of Health, potentially through the Food and Drug Administration to help to regulate the companies. But the companies themselves, because they usually have their own in-house research and development team, they typically, do their own research. And I doubt if they would receive federal funds and to help with their research. It's more or less regulations that are coming from the federal government to the companies, as opposed to the companies saying, this is how you prevent overdose or educating the public. So it's usually coming from that way in instead of from the company out, because the company is in business, to make the dollar more so than to educate the public. So typically the regulations come in and say, okay, if you have a drug that has abuse potential, then you have to say, let the public know that there is abuse liability when you use this particular drug. And it's usually regulations that are coming in. And so the companies have to let you know about their medications, about their drugs, especially if they are an opioid or an opiate.
Okay. My final question, what is one thing you would like to inform our audience, the Hampton Roads community, as well as Hampton University students, about heroin and drug use in general?
Well, especially for heroin, there's so much more than, just the risk of overdose when you're talking about the use of IV drugs. You have the potential to get any type of bloodborne disease right along with using the heroin. And with our, in our area, especially since we're seeing the rise of, deaths, there potentially probably is a rise in use of heroin. And so just, be careful, don't reuse needles, and seek help. Because if you are addicted to heroin, typically you're going to end up overdosing at some point. It's not one of those drugs that are abused that doesn't have that, high death rate associated with it.
Awesome. Good job. Yeah.
Dr. Campbell, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.